Victoria Woodhull, took her to trial, indicted her, and charged her with sending obscenities through the mail because they said, well, you have published obscene obscenities by talking about his affairs, and because you mailed your newspaper, we're going to get you for sending obscenity through the mail. I mean, you're talking about a stretch. That was a stretch. But anyway, she was eventually cleared. He was actually went on trial from being in a civil trial for charges of adultery. But the interesting thing about it, too, is that it completely took Reconstruction off of the headlines, just as we see today. They'll focus on the salacious details of celebrity sex. This was 1872. And completely miss one of the darkest chapters in our country's history, Reconstruction, which they didn't want to talk about anyway. Gave them a good excuse to get that off. So if you look at history, isn't it interesting how the stereotypes just continue to repeat themselves? Now, the other day I was talking about the precariat, one of the admitted topics by the Bilderbergers that I thought was kind of interesting. It was something that I didn't know about prior to that. I started doing research on it, and of course, a book that was written in 2014 really helped to accelerate this. And so there was a lot of people talking about it in 2015, and now it's become a big deal. The end game of this, which I really didn't get to the other day, was the idea they're going to provide a universal basic income. This is unconditional welfare, folks. This is what's being proposed. And what's truly shocking when you look at this is not just that the Bilderbergers would be looking at this as an instrument of control, as they see things like the pushback and the rise of all of these anti-immigration parties, the people seeing what's being done to their currency and saying, we don't like what is happening with this consolidated government. So you have the rise of all these individual parties that they like to characterize as ultra-right-wing parties. And, of course, Donald Trump would be in that category. So how do we control this, I say? Well, this universal basic income. What I found that was really surprising was the fact that this is being supported by so many in the business community. Forbes, the Wall Street Journal, the American Enterprise Institute, the conservative/libertarian think tank that is funded by the Koch brothers. They're all pushing this socialist utopian idea of a universal basic income. Look at this story from Forbes. Universal basic income is not a crazy idea, they tell us. And again, it's unconditional monthly income. And we just had this last Sunday, the Swiss had a referendum. They said, we're going to give $31,000 to every adult in Switzerland without conditions. You can still have a job. You can do whatever you want to. That's just going to be a basic level of income. And if that was a 40-hour work week, that would work out to $16 an hour pay. So there's your $15 an hour pay that Bernie and Hillary are pushing, the socialists are pushing, but it's a little bit more than that, and you get that for doing nothing. It says the concept has been called utopian, irresponsible, socialist. Yeah, because it is. It is. It was rejected by 77% of the Swiss voters. But then he says, last weekend, the Wall Street Journal published an extensive essay by American Enterprise Institute scholar Charles Murray in favor of a universal basic income for the U.S. Now, many of you may not remember who Charles Murray is. I remember him. I remember his book, Losing Ground, 1984. It was a big deal. It was the intellectual basis for massive welfare reform during the Reagan administration. And the fundamental premise of his book, Losing Ground, was to go back and look at people in the inner city, the poor in the inner city, predominantly black, and saying, look at how welfare has destroyed these communities. At one point in time, there were rising small businesses that were coming up. But then when welfare came in, it completely shut that down. And the longer it's been there, the more firmly it got entrenched, the more it's harmed those people. We saw the same thing in Indian reservations. It's by design. It's how they make you passive. It's how they control you. And they've got a dangerous class they call the precariat that they want to control. But what has flipped these people? Why have they gone from saying we can't have welfare that increases dependency to promoting the idea that we're going to have universal welfare without any strings? Stay tuned. I'll tell you what's up with that. We'll be right back. Real quickly, before we get back to what I was talking about with the universal basic income, the universal joining of the socialist left and Wall Street together. That's what they're talking about at Bilderberg, and I'm going to tell you how they are joined together at the hip. Before I do, real quickly, Living Defense is now back in stock at InfoWarsLife.com. Our first batch sold out very quickly. Alex tripled the size of it, and it is quickly selling out again. Go to InfoWarsLife.com before we sell out. It's very important that you understand 9 out of 10 people are infested with harmful organisms. And you can pick these up in a variety of ways. Once these organisms have made it inside your body, they will steal your nutrients. They will release toxic waste. It's time to start eliminating these toxic, harmful organisms. Yeah, organizations. I'm talking about so many different organizations. But these are parasites inside your body, besides the guys at Bilderberg. Eliminate these from your body using Living Defense. And again, you can find out more about that at InfoWarsLife.com. It is selling out very quickly, even though we have tripled the batch run on this. Now, going back to what we were talking about, when I started talking about the precariat, I had somebody email me going back, said, well, it didn't start back in 2014. That's Guy Standing's book, The Precariat, The Dangerous Social Class, and that's what they're talking about at Bilderberg now. I said it didn't start in 2014. They're going back 2011, 2012, even going back to 2010. I'm not really sure when this started, but it's going back farther and farther. But it is something that is being sold to us by the socialists, of course, okay? You look at this and you talk about precariat, and you break everybody down into these classes that need to be managed. That's the way the Marxists always look at people. You belong to a class, and how are we going to manage this class warfare that we've got going here? Well, the very idea, the very terminology of precariat harkens back to proletariat. They also talk about a solitariat. This would be the higher level minions who still have all the privileges and benefits like pensions and vacations and things like that. Okay, then there's some other people who still get paid. They're the proficients. Those are people who are the technological people that are needed and highly skilled, but they're still going to have, they're not going to have the kind of security that the solitariat has, okay, the upper level minions. The proficients are going to have multiple jobs that they hold throughout their career. They're going to have to move around. And we've seen this developing for quite some time in the engineering community. You're not going to have, you don't go to work, and it's been this way for a long time. Even when I was beginning as an engineer, it was pretty well understood that you're not going to go get a job for IBM and stay there for 40 years and get some kind of a wonderful pension when you leave. No, you're going to keep moving from company to company, and if you got a pension, it's going to be because you saved the money yourself. So we've seen what happened with the proficients, but now what's happening, and it's going to happen in an accelerating way, are the people that are at the lower level job skills. They're going to be making less money. They're going to be in a very precarious and dangerous position. No stability in their life. They're the ones who are totally getting screwed first, because it's going to get everybody, folks. But the first ones to feel the heel of globalism on their throat. And I'm looking at this lecture series that they sent me, The Future of the Left, that was done back in November 2012. Whatever happened to parliamentary socialism, socialist democracy, and so forth? Has the left a future, and so forth? They're talking about it from a leftist standpoint. But when we go back and we look at these business publications, as I was pointing out, we've got Forbes, Wall Street Journal, Business Insider. In the wake of this Swiss referendum, they're all talking about how wonderful and how necessary it is for us to have a universal basic income. This is being pushed by some of the most anti-welfare, historically anti-welfare people you had around. The American Enterprise Institute, David Koch, Charles Murray, and others. I'm going to follow up on this tonight on the InfoWars Nightly News. There's not enough time to finish it tonight. Join us tonight at 7 Central, 8 p.m. Eastern for the Nightly News.